Hi folks, I was speaking to my friend Mark the other day, actually yesterday, and we were talking about how to be authentic in inauthentic relationships. Now, what do I mean by inauthentic relationships? It's really where you can't really, the person is not comfortable with you being yourself and being truthful and being honest. I suppose it's the same thing, and just being you, all right, and you not having to wear a mask, okay, and play a game. And I find that a lot of the time we're having to play games with people who are not genuine, and they're not self-aware, and they're not a truthful and honest person, I'd say. Okay, and they wear a mask, and I mentioned this before, and therefore you need to wear a mask, because in truth they're insecure. They haven't even ever touched a part of their true self, the authentic self, right? They don't know about it, that it even exists. So what they are is just a concoction of script, from cultural scripts, media scripts, societal, whatever it is, accompanied by a whole lot of projections, neuroses, insecurities, the list goes on. And so essentially they're not really healthy people. And so you are having to distort yourself on who you are, and again, wear a mask. And it's very uncomfortable to do. I've spoken about this before. But where it gets even more difficult is obviously in long-term relationships. Okay? Relationships where it could be with a landlord and you signed a lease for a year. Could be most likely family members. Okay, most likely family members. Could be with your boss. Okay? And so, to certain degrees, it can be about from the policeman who pulled you over and you sort of just are very polite, overly polite, and yes, sir, thank you, sir, and whatever it is. And with authority, if you getting your visa, your passport renewed, and the woman behind the counter or the man behind is really being such an a-hole, rude, impatient, indifferent, insensitive, and you just got to be like, sit there and agree, and just so you can get your passport, just so they don't for the hell of it, because they're now in a seat of authority and power, and give you a hard time. Okay, so it's generally also people in that have some kind of authority over you, all right, that you got to sort of not brown nose, but you got to be overly polite and friendly and whatever it is. But on a longer term relationships, that's where it's troublesome. That's where it's difficult, because what I have found in long term relationships with others who I've needed to wear a mask is that I can't get an accurate, satisfactory, consistent perspective of who they are beyond the mask. What I'm saying is, let's say in a long-term relationship, could be a family member in this case, where I know that I actually do not like the person. I actually don't think there's anything honorable with them. I don't even like talking to them. I find that they can be very insensitive, very insulting, very controlling, very manipulative, very gaslighting, coming from their point of view of the best intentions. And, for myself, what happens is, I don't know, maybe out of conditioning. Maybe because, let's say, for example, you've always needed to see your parents, you're conditioned to see your parents as flawless, okay? As not without fault, as not with fault, perfect, okay? And so when it comes to parents, it's hard to really, I find for myself, let's just say, hypothetically speaking, if I got an accurate image, or I understand who my mother or my father is, or my aunt or uncle or whatever, if I know who they are, and I don't actually like being in their company, but because of the ties in with the family, and yet I still remove myself as much as I can, but because there are occasions that do arise where I'm needing to be in their company, I forget who they are. Okay, I forget that I actually don't like them. I actually want nothing to do with them. And this troubles me. So it really does trouble me, because again, like, I know, for example, my landlord, right, that I'm currently renting from for the next month, I know that he's not a very sensitive guy. He's not a very empathic kind of guy. He's not very caring. He's very self-centered. And he's very childish. Okay, he's very immature, and he's highly irresponsible. Okay? And I mean, he hasn't paid the water and lights I don't know how many times, and I keep getting cut off. The aircon that's in my bedroom, right? That I barely ever use the aircon, but like on extremely hot nights, which it has been here, right? I mean, even with a fan doesn't do it justice. Even with the door open, like nothing. You can't believe how hot it is. And so for himself, he knows. He's lived in this house. He knows it, but he couldn't care. And so for myself, I know that I'm not playing Mr. Nice anymore. In fact, I shouldn't have been playing Mr. Nice with him for a long time. This is only what I'm learning in hindsight. In other words, I didn't need to really be sort of as friendly as I needed to be in the past, knowing that the guy is who he is. And again, it's not like, how would I say it? You know, if I had nothing to do with him, I wouldn't even have an opinion of him. I wouldn't care to say that he was an arsehole, let's say, or say that he's selfish or something like I wouldn't even care. Like, I'm indifferent. I don't care. Who is he to me? But how am I saying this? That okay, for one, this is something else here, but I think that I've just been playing the very nice, easygoing tenant over more so than I've needed to. I think I've been like, very willing and understanding, and I haven't taken him to task over things, which I should have been, and I should have been more assertive. I've just been polite, and I haven't stood up for myself, right? And I haven't fought for my rights, okay? Because I didn't want to complicate the relationship. I didn't want it to be all of a sudden now we had in conflict and loggerheads with one another. And now, I've still got to ride out like another 10 months in this house and barely having a relationship where we can talk, type of thing. So I didn't want it to go that extreme, and I'm not sure how to just keep it non-emotional, because I'm an emotional kind of guy. And so a lot of the time, and I'm sure you folks know what I'm saying, your emotions get the better of you, or they get involved in business, in certain relationships, partnerships, whatever, that relationship, that emotions don't need to be involved. But that's the kind of guy I am, because I'm saying, look, man, I'm upset with you. You've let me down. And you can't say that to your landlord. The landlord says, who the hell, I'm not your friend that I've let you down, right? You can't talk, but we should be able to. That should be healthy. That should be, realistic. That should be reasonable to say, but you've let me down. You haven't taken care of my needs. I mean, you can say it in different ways, but you've got to be you've got to choose your words carefully, right? And you've got to be careful not to be insulting, just to keep the peace. Because, again, you are in a relationship with a stranger that you tied together, and, you just don't want it to be very unpleasant. Anyway, that's something else. But now I know, especially ending off here on this lease, I know that my landlord's an arsehole. And like, there are things here in this house here that I know aren't working well, that even when I leave, I don't even feel to tell him about it so he can fix it up for the next tenant. Things that he would not work out on his own because he doesn't live here anymore. So I could say, for the comfort of the next tenant, I can point out to you the things. See, because that's more caring for the next tenant. But even if I point these things out to him, I don't think that he'll fix them anyways. Do you see what I mean? But I'm not going out of my way for him anymore like I used to. I'm not going out of my way. I'm not putting him, as a priority anymore. I'm simply, like he fixed the aircon finally. Then he said to me, will you WhatsApp me later, message me later to let me know if it's working all right? I told myself, I'm not going to let you know. I don't care to let you know. I'm not even going to say thank you for the job because it's 11 months too late, my man. 11 months too late. And he doesn't know that I barely ever use the aircon. But that's besides the point. Not just the aircon, but the microwave. The microwave broke I don't know how many months ago, which I reported to him. And I don't use the microwave. But, for him not to fix it, he just didn't have the time. And I remember the one time when I did, he was supposed to come around, and I didn't hear from him for 2 weeks. He blamed it on the weather. He said, it's been raining so much. I said, what? I couldn't even take him to task over there. Don't bullshit me here and say that you didn't come around because it's been raining. I mean, that's honestly what he said to me. And so for myself, I'm sorry, I know I get very passionate in my talks. I think maybe some of my viewers enjoy it, but if you others that don't, what can I do? That's how I feel, and must be honest how the way I feel. So with my landlord, I can change my act, because again, after the end of this lease, it's over and done with. And I'm definitely going to learn in the next lease I sign, on the next landlord, that I have to be a lot more professional. It's a work in progress. But when it comes to family members, right, that's where it's particularly hard, because it's sometimes, you can't pull away. Sometimes whether you're working in a business together, or whether the family member is sick, or you are dependent on them financially for something, not just financially, but for something like that. Maybe they're a lawyer that you need their advice from time to time, free advice. It can be many, many different things, okay? Many, many scenarios, and so you need to keep that relationship going. And so for myself, or healthily, and not, again, you don't have to be best of buddies and as close as thieves, stick as thieves. You just need to be reasonable with one another. But for myself, again, like for a family member, you're approaching as if you're on the same team together, as if, let's say, it's father and son, or mother and son, or something like that, or grandchild and grandfather. Like you under this, really imposed in relationship with all these certain criteria and dynamics that a family relationship is supposed to have. All right. It's like we blood is thicker than water, which is such bullshit, right? And family will always be there for you, which is such bullshit. It really is. But so there's all these criteria and all these assumptions, and that go on there, and so much more. And so for myself, I fit into that role of being my father's son or my mother's son, their child, and I'm regressed back. Right, and especially because they can play a role to me, even my older brother, let's say, they can play a role to me as if where they only understand me from a juvenile, infantile point of view of myself as being a young guy, and they're in an authoritative position, know it all, and whatever it is. And so I regress back and feeling, and then, when I'm dealing, let's say, with one of these family members, I don't want to give out too much information, but then I feel regressed, and I feel restrained, I feel suppressed, because again, I know that I can't bring out to that family member and say, look, I don't like you. The fact that we're in each other's lives and, we related doesn't mean that I like you, doesn't mean that I even respect you, right? And not because you haven't been the best role model to me, or looked after me, or supported me, or loved me. Not anything because of, okay, that's part of it, but just as you are as an individual, as a person. Like I'm overly begrudged. I mean, I'm not bothered. Let's say if I'm talking about my father, let's say, and I say, well, you haven't been in my life, right? In fact, you haven't supported me. You've actually given me a harder time than anything else. In fact, every time, let's say, I've tried to do something financial or business-wise or something like that, or want to travel or buy a piece of property or get involved in this business, that you've discouraged me, right? That you've told me what a loser I am and how I'm going to fail, okay? Rather than just encouragement, support, or not even saying anything at all. Okay? Sorry, it's a late hour and I'm bothered at the moment, obviously, you can hear. And losing my train of thought, or just going off in different directions. And so, again, for myself, it's not like, let's say I'm to my mother, I'm saying, well, you weren't really around. Okay, and I remember what I was saying. You didn't really give me support. You actually gave me misdirection. In fact, you sabotaged me. Whatever it was, you put on a lot of your own neuroses and traumas and whatever it is, unconsciousness and whatever onto me. I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about the fact that, let's say, I just don't like you. But when I'm talking to, let's say, my mother, my father, my grandparents, or something like that, or older brother, it's like I got to pretend, right? And you pay the price. And so you ask yourself, really, do you want to pretend? Do you have to pretend? Like, I'll ask myself that, right? Like, am I not? I really got to ask myself this: am I not dishonoring myself by being inauthentic? Right? Again, I don't necessarily have to say to them, because if I say to them, look, I don't like you, they will rain hell down on me, or they will say they'll lose their, you know what I'm saying. Go to your boss and say you don't like him, and see how long you last, and see what happens. Type of thing. I mean, just, you know what I'm saying. You're going to pay the consequences. For a sensitive person, I find, for a conscious person, when you tell them I don't like you, I think they're very bothered about it. But in an honest way, so, okay, someone says I don't like you, person in my life, I'd say, okay, why don't you like me? What have I done to you that you don't like? Or you don't like the fact that, I don't know, maybe I don't live up to your expectations or something like that, and unreasonable expectations, something, whatever it is. Why don't you like me? What have I done to hurt you? What have I done to? What is it that that makes you maybe that I do that makes you feel uncomfortable? Like, what is it? And I'd be bothered enough to know and try and understand, and if it was in reason. But for unconscious individuals or insensitive, heartless individuals, they just have their back up and they'll just go to war with you. Unreasonably so, and they'll drag you through the mud. They can especially if it's a narcissist, they'll drag you, because you're sensitive, right? And you're open and you're heartfelt, and so you'll pay the price. So that's the thing, is that you can't. So for myself, I've got to ask myself and say, certain relationships in my life. Look, the thing is that I don't need to cut ties completely. I just need to be realistic with who they really are all the time, and have very little or almost nothing to do with them. In small little bits and pieces, but also like write them off. You know what I'm saying? Write them off. In my heart and in my mind. And again, not out of just bitterness. Yes, obviously a little bit of bitterness there, but write them off, because the thing is that nothing can really sincerely be gained from the relationship. No, the only thing that can be gained is hurt, betrayal, suppression, denial, self-denial. That's it. That's what can be gained. You can lose yourself in the relationship, in the dialogue, in the mask that you need to wear with them. That's what can be gained. Self-loss, right? And not only that, but if you're too open and you're too inviting and you let them in and you get your expectations or your hopes up and you turn to them in an hour of need. And again, so they don't know. At the same time, there's much to be said here. At the same time, they don't know how to be there for you. So it's a write-off. You would easily write off a friend that you used to be, a colleague from work at, every now and again that you see, say even you go out for a drink once a month. You write them off. if you can see the relationship's not going anywhere, it's not serving you. There's no benefit to it. But you can write them off. And so why can't we write off certain people in our lives? Like, whether it's family members or something or other. Just write them off. And we write them off in our hearts and in our minds. Now, I know that sounds terrible, but it's for our own well-being. Because we value ourselves. Because we want to be authentic, right? And we want to be real. And we don't want to suppress. And we don't want to feel regressed. And we don't want to sell ourselves short by being in a relationship with these people. And so for myself, what I'm saying is that I think I can still be, I always got to keep checking on myself. I've got to be realistic and say, do I really need to be, I can still cut them off in my heart and in my mind and in my spirit. But do I have to cut them off like no communication? Right? Is that necessary? And I don't think right now that that's very necessary. But I think to keep my absolute distance and put up massive boundaries, and again, write them off, is the appropriate thing to do, is the necessary thing to do. It's like a symbolic death that the person's almost dying, in a way. Got to cut that umbilical cord, the spiritual umbilical cord. And you say it's a bittersweet. You say, oh, wow, it's my grandparent, it's my mother, it's my stepmother, it's my father, it's my older brother, my older sister, whatever it is, my younger, cut them off. Symbolically that they die to you and say, oh, but why? But you know what this needs to be? It's toxic. It's toxic to you. So, for some people, I'm saying you can't cut them off. You live at home. I don't know, maybe you are ill and your father or your mother looks after you financially. You can't get a job. There's many situations. And so you're having to rely on them. You're married, can't divorce, because financially you're dependent on the person. They're paying for your medical bills, for heaven's sake. You're not even capable of getting a job because you are bedridden or you're wheelchair bound or something like that. So you're dependent on them. There's so many different circumstances. And so in those situations, so many of us are trapped. So many of us are trapped. And yes, you're needing to have some kind of inauthentic relationship. At the end of the day, this is the suffering that we're putting up with. This is the compromise that a sensitive, compassionate, heartfelt soul is having to put up with. Such detritus, such garbage, such humiliation, right? Such hurt, such betrayal, such grossness that you're having to put up with. And this is the struggle. I don't know what to say. But we don't lose our own self-worth, right? In these relationships, we don't hear the grandfather or the critical grandfather or father figure, mother figure, their criticism which they've had from day one. We don't buy it anymore. We don't buy the manipulation, the gaslighting, right? Whatever it is, the projections. We don't buy any of that because we know our self-worth. So we let it water off a duck's back, although it's very, very hard to do. It's very, very hard to do, like I said, especially when it comes to family members, because it's so close, it's so bloody personal. It's very hard to do for some of us. And so, but where we can have space, and you can still write them off, even though you're in each other's lives, but you write them off, you really do. So that way you're just not kidding yourself. You know the ultimate truth. And that will hold you in good stead and where you can return to after you've have to put on the mask. Right? Is your own self-worth. That's what you can rely on and return back to. In other words, you're just not a ship sailing in the night, and don't know where you're headed type of thing. No, you come, because that's what happens when you start wearing a mask and you start seeing the other person as so wonderful, like, oh, dad, and oh, mom, and oh, type of thing, and my boss, Oh, you're just so wonderful, you're just so perfect, you're so flawless, you really want what's best for me, especially, which is such bullshit, A parent, we just want what's best for you. Nonsense. You want what's best for you, not what's best for me. Okay, so we're not gaslighted by that. So you know your self-worth, and you know their lies, and you know their trickery, right? And you know the spells that they'd like to push, and you know how toxic and unhealthy that they can be. And at the same time, you face the music with them. Okay, because any kind of suggesting to them that you don't like them, you're not happy with it, most of the time they're not interested in that. Either you put up and shut up, or, you're out with the baby with the bathwater, you're out. And not only that, but they'll make your life a living hell. In some circumstances, they really will. So again, for me, being more assertive, being more realistic, writing these people off that I need to write off, okay? And having to be, if it's 5 minutes in their company once a month, so be it. If it's an hour in their company, 2 hours once a week, so be it. I don't lose who I am. I know what the truth is. I know what the reality is, right? I'm just getting by. And when the time comes where I feel like I actually need to go, completely cut off, then that will be necessary, and that's the steps we'll need to take, and that's the steps that some of you also need to take, is actually just severing the ties completely and walking away if you don't have to. What are you hanging around for? Guilt? And so what are you hanging around for? Because what are they really bringing you? Nothing but misery. That's all they really bring you, is nothing but heartache and misery. That's in my experience, And so that's it, folks. I mean, it's multi-layered and multifaceted, and there's many different scenarios at play here, so you just got to have a lot of that in mind. Anyways, at the end of the day, we don't forget who we are, who I am. Being more assertive, okay? Putting in the boundaries. Playing less dumb than I need to. Less fictional. Sorry, non-fiction. No. Yeah. To a certain degree, and keeping within my integrity. And knowing who I am at the end of the day. Alright, folks. Again, appreciate you taking the time. Chat soon. Be well.